If you look at the richest people in the world today, you'll notice something fascinating. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Dell, Jensen Huang. Although they built completely different companies in completely different industries, almost all of them followed a remarkably similar journey. They didn't become wealthy because they earned the world's highest salaries. They didn't become rich by winning the lottery. And they certainly didn't start with billion-dollar companies. In fact, they started with a simple idea, built a startup, raised investment, grew their businesses over many years, and eventually created companies worth billions or even trillions of dollars. So how does that actually happen? How does a small startup become a giant global company? And how do founders become some of the richest people in history without receiving billion-dollar paychecks? In this video, I'll walk you through the complete business journey from an idea to a startup, to raising investment, to an IPO, and finally how founders build extraordinary wealth. Think of this as Business Finance 101. Let's begin. Number 1. Every business starts with an idea. Every successful company begins exactly the same way, with an idea. Someone notices a problem that people face every day and believes there must be a better solution. Before there are employees, offices, or investors, there is simply a problem waiting to be solved. Google wanted to organize the world's information and make searching the internet easier. Amazon wanted to make buying books online more convenient. Facebook wanted to connect university students through a social network. Tesla wanted to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles. SpaceX wanted to reduce the cost of space travel. Different companies, different industries, different founders. But every one of them started with a single idea. At this stage, there are no billion-dollar valuations, no headlines, and certainly no billionaire founders. There's only an idea and someone willing to take the risk of building it. Number 2. What is a startup? Once founders believe their idea can become a real business, they create a company. This early stage is what we call a startup. A startup isn't simply a small business. It's a company trying to create a product or service that can grow rapidly and reach a much larger market. In the beginning, startups are usually incredibly small. Sometimes it's just one founder. Sometimes 2 or 3 friends working together. They might work from a garage, a dorm room, or even a small rented apartment. Money is limited, employees are few, and success is far from guaranteed. In fact, not every startup becomes a successful company. Many run out of money before finding enough customers. Others discover that people simply don't want their product. But the few that continue learning, adapting, and growing can eventually become the companies we recognize around the world today. Number 3. Every startup needs money. Let's imagine your startup is actually doing well. Customers love your product. Sales are increasing. More people are talking about your company. But now you face a new problem. You need money to grow. You need to hire engineers, designers, and salespeople. You need to buy computers and equipment. You might need to build factories, spend money on advertising, or expand into new cities and new countries. Growth requires capital, and that brings us to one of the biggest questions every founder eventually faces. Where does the money come from? Generally speaking, companies have 3 choices. They can borrow money from banks and repay it later with interest. They can use the profits they've already earned, which is often the slowest but safest approach. Or they can sell part of their company to investors in exchange for funding. This is known as raising equity, and is the path many of today's biggest successful companies chose. Number 4. Startup funding rounds. Contrary to what many people believe, successful startups don't suddenly appear on the stock market. Most spend years raising money privately before the public even has a chance to invest. The journey usually begins with the founders investing their own savings. At this stage, they're taking all the risk because they believe in their own idea before anyone else does. As the business starts to take shape, family and friends may become the first people willing to invest. They often aren't investing because they fully understand the business. They're investing because they believe in the founders themselves. If the startup continues to grow, it may attract angel investors. These are wealthy individuals who invest their own money into promising early-stage businesses in exchange for a small ownership stake. The next stage is usually called the seed round. By now, the company has usually proven that people actually want its product or service. Seed funding gives the startup the resources to hire more employees, improve its product, and prepare for faster growth. As the company becomes larger, it may raise Series A funding, then Series B, then Series C. Some companies even continue with Series D, Series E, or additional funding rounds before ever considering an IPO. At these stages, many of the investors are venture capital firms, often called VC firms. Unlike angel investors who invest their own personal money, venture capital firms manage money on behalf of other investors and invest in startups they believe have the potential to become the next Google, Amazon, or SpaceX. Venture capital is a fascinating topic on its own. If you like, I can make another video explaining how venture capital firms work and how they invest in startups. If that's something you like to see, just comment VC below. Each funding round brings more money into the business. That money allows the company to hire talented employees, develop better products, expand into new markets, build factories, invest in marketing, and grow much faster than it could on its own. But every funding round also comes with a trade-off. To receive new investment, founders usually give away a small portion of their ownership in the company. Over time, they own a smaller percentage of the business, but hopefully, a much larger and more valuable business. So how can founders become richer while owning less of their own company? Now, let's see how that works with a simple example. Number 5. Why founders sell ownership. At first, giving away ownership sounds like a terrible idea. After all, why would anyone voluntarily own less of their own company? Wouldn't you want to keep 100% forever? Let's use a simple example. Imagine you start a company that's currently worth $1 million. You own the entire business, so you own 100% of the company. This $1 million is called the pre-money valuation because it's the value of the company before receiving any new investment. Now imagine an investor believes your business has huge potential and offers to invest $250,000 to help you grow. Once that investment is added, your company is now worth $1.25 million. This is called the post-money valuation because it includes the new investment. Since the investor contributed $250,000 out of the company's new total value of $1.25 million, they now own 20% of the company. You still own the remaining 80%. A few years later, your business has grown dramatically. It's now worth $100 million. Another investor wants to help you expand into new countries and invests another $50 million. Once again, you sell a small percentage of the company in exchange for the new investment. This process continues over many years. As the business grows, new investors join, bringing more money, experience, and valuable business connections. In return, the founders gradually own a smaller percentage of the company. That's why founders rarely own 100% of their businesses by the time they become successful. But here's the most important lesson. Owning a smaller percentage doesn't necessarily mean becoming poorer. In fact, it often means exactly the opposite. Imagine you own an entire pizza. At the beginning, all 10 slices belong to you. Then you give one slice to an investor. Later, you give away another slice. Eventually, you own only 2 slices. At first, that sounds like a bad deal. But what if the pizza itself keeps growing? What if it grows from the size of a dinner plate to the size of a dining table and eventually becomes as large as an entire football field? Would you rather own 100% of a tiny pizza or 20% of a football field-sized pizza? This is why dilution isn't always a bad thing. This is how many successful startups grow. Founders may own a smaller percentage of the company over time, but if the business becomes much more valuable, their remaining ownership can be worth far more than owning 100% of a small business. Sometimes, owning a smaller piece of a much bigger company is one of the smartest trade-offs a founder can make. Number 6. What is a private company? Before a company goes public, it's known as a private company. This simply means its shares aren't available for the general public to buy or sell. Instead, ownership is limited to the founders, employees, and selected investors who invested during earlier funding rounds. For example, imagine it's 2025 and you wanted to become a shareholder of SpaceX. Could you simply open your brokerage account, search for SpaceX, and buy a few shares? The answer is no. That's because SpaceX was still a private company in 2025. Since it hadn't gone public yet, its shares weren't available on the stock market. Instead, only approved investors, company employees, and existing shareholders were able to own SpaceX shares. Ordinary investors like you and me couldn't simply buy SpaceX stock whenever we wanted. In the stock market, ordinary investors like you and me are called retail investors. If you'd like me to explain more stock market terms like this, comment stock market, and I'll make a beginner's guide covering the most important terminology. Many of today's biggest companies spend years or even decades as private companies before ever considering an IPO. During that time, they continued raising money privately, developing new products, hiring more employees, expanding into new markets, and growing their businesses long before the general public ever had the opportunity to invest. Eventually, however, many companies reach a point where they need even more capital to continue expanding. That's when they begin asking an important question: should we stay private? Or should we become a public company? This leads us to the next step of the journey: the initial public offering, or IPO. Number 7. What is an IPO? Eventually, many successful companies become so large that private funding is no longer enough. They need access to much larger amounts of capital to continue expanding around the world. At the same time, many early investors who supported the company from the beginning may want the opportunity to sell some of the shares they've held for years and realize the value of their investment. This is where initial public offering, or IPO, comes in. An IPO is the first time a private company offers its shares to the general public through the stock market. When a company goes public, it can raise billions of dollars from investors around the world. That new capital can be used to expand the business, build new factories, invest in research and development, enter new markets, acquire other companies, or pursue even bigger opportunities for future growth. For many companies, going public marks the beginning of an entirely new chapter. The company now has access to millions of potential investors, while its value is continuously determined by the stock market based on what investors believe the company is worth. If you want a deeper explanation of what an IPO is and how it works, comment IPO below, and I'll make a complete beginner's guide. But here's where things become really interesting. Once the company's shares begin trading on the stock market, something else starts changing every single day: the founder's wealth. Let's see why. Number 8. Why founders become billionaires overnight. Once a company becomes publicly traded, something remarkable begins to happen. Every second the stock market is open, millions of buyers and sellers are deciding what they believe the company is worth. If investors believe the company's future is bright, more people want to buy its shares. As demand for those shares increases, the share price rises. And as the share price rises, the company's overall market value, also known as its market capitalization, increases as well. Want to know how share prices move every day? Comment stock price below, and I'll make a video explaining how the stock market works day by day. Now here's the important part. Founders usually still own millions of shares in the company after it goes public. So when the company's share price rises, the value of the founder's ownership rises too. But here's the biggest misconception. They don't suddenly receive billions of dollars in cash. They don't receive a massive paycheck from the company. And nobody transfers billions of dollars into their bank account overnight. Instead, their wealth increases because the market now believes the company they own is worth much more than before. Their net worth goes up because the estimated value of the shares they already own has increased. This is why you'll often see headlines saying that someone became $10 billion richer in a single day. In most cases, the money didn't suddenly appear in their bank account. It's simply the estimated market value of their ownership increasing as the company's share price rises. That's exactly how many founders become billionaires, or even trillionaire on paper, overnight. And one of the best examples of this is Elon Musk and SpaceX. Number 9. Now let's put everything we've learned together using SpaceX as an example. When Elon Musk founded SpaceX in 2002, it wasn't a $1 trillion company. It wasn't even a $1 billion company. It was simply a startup with an ambitious mission to dramatically reduce the cost of space travel and eventually make humanity a multiplanetary species. Like every other startup, it began with a small team, limited resources, and a founder who believed in an idea that many people thought was impossible. As the company grew, SpaceX needed more money to develop more advanced rockets, hire talented engineers, build manufacturing facilities, and expand its operations. Rather than relying solely on internally generated cash or traditional bank loans, SpaceX raised money through multiple private funding rounds. Each new round brought in investors who provided the capital needed to fuel the company's growth. With each funding round, Elon Musk gave up a small portion of his ownership in exchange for new investment. But as we learned earlier, owning a smaller percentage isn't necessarily a bad thing. While Elon's ownership percentage gradually became smaller, the overall value of SpaceX kept growing larger and larger. Over the years, SpaceX's valuation grew from millions to billions to hundreds of billions of dollars. Every successful launch, every new contract, every technological breakthrough, and every funding round convinced investors that the company was becoming more valuable than ever before. Eventually, SpaceX's valuation climbed into the trillions of dollars. Although Elon no longer owned 100% of the company, he still owned a significant stake. Because the company had become so valuable, the estimated value of Elon's ownership briefly pushed his net worth above $1 trillion on paper. He didn't receive $1 trillion paycheck. He didn't suddenly find $1 trillion in his bank account. His wealth increased because the value of the shares he already owned increased as investors believed SpaceX had become one of the world's most valuable companies. And that's the game played by many of the world's richest entrepreneurs. They don't become wealthy simply because they earn high salaries. They become wealthy because they build valuable businesses, raise capital to accelerate growth, retain meaningful ownership, and spend years or even decades creating companies that the world believes are extraordinarily valuable. Whether it's Elon Musk with SpaceX, Jeff Bezos with Amazon, Larry Page and Sergey Brin with Google, Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, Michael Dell with Dell Technologies, or Jensen Huang with Nvidia, the journey is remarkably similar. It all starts with one simple idea, grows into a startup, raises investment, scales into a global business, reaches the stock market, and for the most successful companies, eventually becomes most valuable businesses on earth. Once you understand this journey, you begin to see that billion-dollar companies aren't built overnight. They aren't created solely with the founder's own money, and most weren't founded by millionaires. They all started with a simple idea, developed a product or service that solved real problems, attracted investment, and grew step by step over many years. That's how great companies are built. And that's one of the most important business lessons anyone interested in finance, investing, or entrepreneurship can learn. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Basics Finance. See you in the next one.